Hello and welcome to another episode of Social Workers Rise. It is your host, Catherine here. We are on episode 196 of the Social Workers Rise podcast. I cannot believe we're almost at 200 episodes. It is crazy. It is so crazy, but I am grateful that you are here with me. Today, we're going to be talking about warning signs to look out for when social media may be impacting your mental health. Yes, this is relatable to me on so many levels, and I hope it's relatable to you. I'm wondering if you've ever thought to yourself, is social media doing more harm than good in my life right now? And if you have wondered that, you are not alone. So we're going to be talking about the warning signs that you can look out for yourself and also for your clients too, because we are all in this together. This conversation came top of my mind, and I wanted to put this out as the first episode of 2025 because after January 19th, 2025, when TikTok went offline for one night, oh my gosh, there was an outrage, an outcry of anxiety, of people literally crying because they didn't have TikTok, people feeling lost, saying, what do I do if I don't have TikTok to go on to? And this sense of who am I without social media came up, which for me as a licensed therapist, I took this as some major red flags, and we need to talk about it, my friend, because if this is you, we can do better. Okay. There are some good things to social media, and I'm not going to discount that. So I began to really look into the research around social media's impact on mental health and self-esteem for a number of different reasons recently, maybe 2024 and now into 2025. I'm really diving into the research because it impacts us on so many sneaky levels that we don't even know. But after this episode, I'm hoping that you're going to be a little bit more keen to how social media might be impacting your mood, your relationships, and your overall mental health. So also, this is going to affect your self-esteem as well. I recently got hired to provide a training and a keynote on social media's effect on teens' self-esteem. So, y'all, the impacts are real, and this is affecting generations of us. So, let's hop into the warning signs and then listen to the end, because after all of these warning signs, I'm going to give you some tips and some tools on how you can either help yourself manage these things, or if you work with clients who are being impacted by social media use, how you can help them problem solve and come up with their own solutions as well. First, we're going to be talking about the behavioral warning signs, right? So what kind of behaviors are you going to exhibit that might be a problem? First, I want to mention that this is not a mental health disorder diagnosis yet. I would bet money that this is coming. You will be seeing this in a new episode, a new version of the DSM, because it's coming out. I'm gonna put my money on it. It's coming, because a psychological disorder is essentially when symptoms begin to cause significant distress in your life. Okay. And when we are using social media to the point that it's causing us significant distress, either behavioral, to our physical health, to our mental health, to our relationships, to our ability to function in school or the workplace, if it's holding us back from accomplishing our dreams, from establishing our own sense of self, then yeah, I would say that's definitely significant distress in your life. So some behavior red flags that we want to look out for that might signify that you might have an unhealthy relationship with social media. And I say might on purpose because everybody's different. I don't know your specific situation, but I want to give you the information to just consider for yourself. Is this a problem? Are there changes that need to be made? Number one, spending excessive time online, even when it interferes with your sleep or your responsibilities. Maybe you're avoiding offline activities like skipping social events, not exercising because you would rather be scrolling, or maybe you're not even calling people that you're close with, because why call them when you can just say happy birthday on their birthday photo, right? Social media might also be causing you to neglect some hobbies. It might be making you feel anxious or irritable if you are getting off social media and you're just in a bad mood, in a worse mood than when you started, or causing anxiety if you don't have access to your phone or internet. And by the way, there is an actual word for this: nomophobia, which is short for no mobile phone phobia. It's a type of anxiety disorder that can cause a person to feel stressed or anxious when they don't have their phone or can't connect to mobile data. I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Nomophobia, nomophobia, I don't know. It's new. We gotta look it up. But it is a thing. So if you're experiencing nomophobia, just beware, right? So if you take, for example, if you're scrolling late into the night, you're tired and you say, oh, I just want to see what's going on TikTok or Instagram, whatever it is. And you find yourself scrolling for an hour, 2 hours, maybe more, to the point that you are using social media instead of getting the sleep that your mind and body needs. That is going to take its toll on your well-being over time, especially if we're talking about people who are still developing. So kids, teenagers, young adults. If you're in college, that is an extreme amount of emotional and mental toll that you are under, and you're adding in a lack of sleep on top of that. So those are some of the behavior warning signs. Next up are the emotional warning signs that we want to be aware of. One, as I mentioned before, if you're experiencing more anxiety or sadness after using certain platforms, you might be experiencing mood swings based on interactions, or if your posts aren't getting enough likes, if you're not getting enough comments, and you start to feel moody because of that. If you are using social media as a way to numb your feelings or distract yourself from feelings that are going on. I talk to so many people when I say, hey, what do you do for self-care to manage all the stress that you're under? And they tell me, oh, I scroll on the internet. Like, okay, that's distraction. So not really helpful, not actually self-care, because it's not actually processing the stress that is stored in your body. So if you are using it as a way to distract from your emotions or from your problems or from conversations that need to be had, definitely take a look at that. Also, too, if you're getting your external validation from social media, and your self-esteem is directly tied to the amount of followers you have, the likes that you get, the comparison that you're doing with other people, that is a really big problem as well. Because as we saw with TikTok, once TikTok went down, once social media is not down, who are you? Where do we get our validation now? How do we learn to be happy with ourselves, just as myself, as an individual, as a human, as a full and lovable person without the internet, without my cell phone? Something to consider. So, talked about behavioral signs, emotional signs. Next, we're going to dive into some social warning signs, right? So there's a lot of social impact with these apps, social media, both good and bad. right? A lot of times people like connecting with people, they like keeping up with what's going on. They say that it helps them maintain social relationships. And at the same time, I always question, is it a quality relationship? Do you feel heard and seen and validated and like you're able to share your real emotions with these people? Probably not, because a lot of times what we consider to be our social relationships on social media, to be honest, they're kind of shallow. Yeah, I said it. They're shallow because everyone who I'm talking to on social media, if they message me, it's like, hey, you look great. I love your hair. Your dress is so nice. It's very shallow. It's not real in-depth conversations. You don't know what's actually going on in my life behind social media, right? So, while yes, we can maintain social relationships, and a lot of them, it's really become quantity over quality. Another warning sign is if you are experiencing cyberbullying, either as a victim or as a perpetrator. It's one of those things where if we got bullied at school back in the day, we would be able to leave that bully at school and they wouldn't be able to access us anymore. We could totally disconnect from that situation. But now they're in our phones. They're text messaging us at family dinners. It's the last thing that we see before we go to sleep and the first thing that we see in the morning. And over time, that takes its toll on us. If you are prioritizing virtual connections over real life ones, for example, oftentimes I'll see people hanging out. And I say people because it's not only teens. We like to kind of blame the teens, but it's not. I see people of all ages, even adults, at dinner, and they're on their phones while they're all in a group at dinner. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh. Okay, because we're prioritizing what's on our phone versus real life situations, real life engagements. And this happens to kids too. So all the time, well, it used to happen all the time. My daughter would ask me, oh, can my friend come over and we want to play video games or we want to be on some sort of screen? And I've said no, because when that happens, all they're doing together is watching screens. They're not engaging, they're not socializing, they're not communicating, they're not laughing, they're not learning how to problem solve, they're not creating new things. So when our children are constantly with screens, they lose that ability and that skill of being able to learn how to communicate, how to read nonverbal language, how to assert yourself in a healthy way. All of these little things that kids are losing when they're behind the screens. They're losing out on these real life connections. Also, too, if you are growing up with social media or using it so much that you have lost your sense of self, or you don't even know who you are without considering, what are other people going to think? What are other people going to say about me? What should I do so that I am more popular? What should I do so that more people like me? That's not establishing your sense of self, meaning who are you as an individual, as a person? In therapy, I talk to a lot of women who, even though they're adults, they've never found their sense of self because they have always been catering to other people. When you're dating, you'll say, okay, well, what is it that you want to do? Oh, you want to go do that? Okay, that sounds like fun. But if you're never given the opportunity or the space to say, okay, what is it that you want to do outside of what other people, what your partner wants to do, what your family wants to do, what sounds good to you? What are your likes? What are your dislikes? What are your values? Who are you as a person? And as people pleasers and people on social media, this can get lost to where if I ask you, well, what do you feel like is right for you? And people say, well, I don't know. What it depends on what my parents would say or what my friends would say or what my partner would say. Like I'm asking you, right? Yes, we can take them into consideration, but it's important to know, what do you want to do as an individual, right? And lastly, it might be taking its physical toll. If you are having sleep disruptions, you can be getting headaches, eye strain from prolonged use, your shoulders are hunched over, you're getting shoulder pain. So there's a lot of red flags to look out for to see, hey, is this social media use what I want it to be? Is this how I want it to be right now? And if it's not, if you feel like, yes, I have a lot of these symptoms, or I know people who are experiencing a lot of these symptoms, what can I do? Here are some actionable advice for you if you are trying to change this up in any way, right? One, you're here, you're starting the conversation. So encourage open, non-judgmental conversation with other people, with your peers, with your classmates, with other people who might be experiencing the same thing, right? You can start one, you can share this episode with them and say, hey, check this out. Let me know what you think. Another way after starting the conversation is for you personally to set your own intentions and consider, why are you using social media? For what? So, for example, for me, I use social media. My intention is to use it for networking, for business, to get the word out about my podcast. I do use it to connect with friends sometimes and just see, hey, what are you up to? And then it helps to give me more information or more things to talk about when I do actually call them up on the phone, when I set up times to go meet with them in real life. I'll say, hey, I love that picture that you posted the other day. Tell me more about your trip. I want to hear all about it, right? Because one picture or a reel about their trip highlights doesn't tell me exactly how their trip went. I want to hear all the juicy details, right? Because that's how you build those relationships. So, what are your intentions for using it? Is it to be entertained? Is it to laugh? Is it to feel better? Is it to check in with people? And after that intention is done, then call it quits. Have those boundaries. Or if your intention is not working, so if you're going on like, oh, I just want to feel better, and then afterwards you don't, then reevaluate. Is that the right coping mechanism for you? Set those boundaries. So set time limits for yourself, turn off notifications. You can create your phone free zone. For example, if you're at family dinner, maybe you don't want to have your cell phone. If you're in class, you turn on your do not disturb and put it in your backpack. If you are working, maybe you put on the do not disturb or turn it off, silence it, and put it away. Because if you have it out and it's visible, this alone can cause anxiety. There's been studies done that just seeing your phone will cause a distraction. It'll increase your anxiety, and it'll increase the likelihood that you're going to pick it up just to randomly check it, even if you haven't heard it buzz or ding or notify you that something has happened, right? So putting it away altogether, out of sight, right? Next is to try to clean up your algorithm a little bit. Unfollow anybody who is making you feel worse about yourself. If you feel like you're constantly comparing yourself and say, oh, I don't have their kind of life. I'm not as pretty. I'm not as funny. I'm not as whatever. If they're making you feel worse about yourself, stop. Just unfollow them. And I would challenge you to find more people who help you feel better, who feed into yourself, who give you good energies. We got good vibes. They're teaching you something. Maybe you're learning about something, but they're improving your life in some way. Follow those people. Next, take breaks. Try doing a social media detox or scheduling activities that are not happening online, right? Meeting up with a friend, play dates, coffee, hiking, whatever, right? Taking some breaks from it. And if these are really hard for you, they're not working, definitely talk to people, reach out for help if needed. You can talk to counselors, you can talk to therapists, you can talk to other trusted adults or trusted peers for support. Because ultimately, if you continue on this path with these symptoms that I have just mentioned, right? If you're feeling like a lack of sleep, if your relationships are dwindling, if you don't have relationships, if you struggle with making friends in real life, if you're not able to stop this pattern now, I would question, what is your life going to look like in 6 months from now, in a year, in 2 years from now? If you're not learning how to do this, or if you're not really investing in yourself and in your mental health. If in 2 years you say, oh, I think it'd be fine if I didn't make any changes, okay, then, turn off the podcast, don't make any changes. But if 2 years from now you're thinking, okay, it might be a problem, then yes, this is your call. This is your sign. This is the light to make some changes, right? So just to recap, we talked about a lot of the warning signs, right? And if you identify with these, make sure that you are taking action. One way that you can take action is if this episode resonated with you, go ahead and share it with a friend. You can open up your podcast app, text it over and say, hey, check this out. Let me know what you think about this. If you want more from me, if you want to know about what's happening in the world of social work as far as trainings and resources and tools go, make sure to open up the podcast app and click on join the email newsletter. On Fridays, I haven't been doing it recently, but on Fridays, I try to send out resources that I think are going to be helpful for you as a clinical social worker in your career and for your wellness and for creating balance in your life. So with that, I thank you so much. And I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, the Rise Directory. If you are looking for clinical supervisors in your state, definitely check out risedirectory.com. And that's for the United States. You can browse and see who is available to provide supervision for you. Under the resources tabs, there's a lot of really great resources, templates, and contracts that can help you with your supervision need. So with that, I will see you next time.